YouTube, how the heck we doing today, guys? Today, for Tier List Tuesday, we're going over the worst metas in Call of Duty Warzone. Let's go. Alrighty, guys, so pretty straightforward, guys. For everyone that has been around for the last year of Call of Duty Warzone, there has been some terrible metas. Like, I'm going to get into all of them here because I think I hit every one of them. Let me know in the comments if we did miss one. I talked to my mods and we got into Discord channel thinking of all of them. So I think we hit them all, but we may have missed a couple of them. There has been so many. This is going to be the hardest one I've ever made for Tier List Tuesday, by the way, because these all sucked. Like, they were all broken. They could all easily go into like S tier. Like, they were terrible at the time being. So like comparing them all, it's going to be tough. So just remember, guys, the way we're going to do the ranking system today, guys, is S to D. S is like the worst of the worst today. D is like, all right, that was like, if looking back at it, you could probably live through it again. So, but for like my standards here, like ranking between S and D, like S, like there's like a small skill gap. Like the skill gap just gets like bigger as you go down. Cause like, I'll get into a little bit more, but like right now in the AUG meta, there's 0 skill gap. And so I know a lot of people feel that way, even players that aren't that good. So we'll talk about it a little bit more. Let's jump right into it, guys. Let's go. Alrighty, guys. So first off here, guys, we have the Bruen. So the Bruen was absolutely busted when this first came out, guys. And like, it's an LMG, so there was a downside to it. It was a little bit clunky. It was insane though. You would just laser people across the map, had 0 recoil, had insane damage. Like, I cringe to it still because it lasted for way too long. It took like 3 nerfs or something like that to get it to the state where it's at today, where honestly it's pretty balanced. I would say I kind of like where it's at these days, but I would probably drop it in A tier. It's one of those guns that like the skill gap just wasn't there. Like, you could hit just a few shots and you would kill people. Was not a fun meta to be around with, especially at the peak of it. Like, it was just low skill gap where someone had 60 bullets, it reloaded really fast, and they would just spray you across the map, basically. Did not love it at all. And then people threw the VLK scope on it instead of the blue dot, and it just became broken again, even after the first bug. So, or after the first nerf. So, it was insane, guys. So, it's going to fall into A. Next, we have, let's mix this up a little bit here. Let's go back here, guys. Let's throw it back to the rennettis. The dual rennettis were very interesting. So we'll get to another one here, the dual snake shots. But the dual rennettis, if you guys weren't around for the beginning of Warzone, these were so annoying. Like, insanely annoying. It's the same thing as like the Diamattis. Like, you could put these in the same category because they were both broken in the same way. But to be honest, there's one way to beat these. Like, they're broken, but you can really beat them at the end of the day by just keeping your distance. Obviously, there is end game zones where you physically can't keep your distance, but with these other guns, like, you could take the Bruen when it was broken into a close quarter situation and win gunfights. You're not going to be able to win gunfights with the rennettis or Diamattis from like halfway across the map. So there is a way to deal with them. So that's why I'm going to put it at the lower part. You could deal with them, but man, it's not fun getting killed with pistols in a building in 1 bullet. So they were pretty disgusting. Next, we're going to throw the FAL here, guys. Who remembers the FAL SMG? It was like 3 bullets with no stock on it. Like, you ran it as your SMG class, and it was ridiculous, guys. I hated this meta, but I will say the skill gap was pretty big on it. Like, the better players were absolutely dominant with it, and the lower level players, they couldn't really deal with using it. So the FAL I would put at that B tier because there was that skill gap. It was still there. The better player won most of the time. If you snuck a headshot in, obviously every once in a while you're going to lose a fight, but I like the skill gap that this one had. I wouldn't say it was like the worst of the worst, but man, I remember there were some times like you only had like 20 or 40 rounds, or I think it was a 30 round mag you ran in that FAL, and you could just take out a whole team in 30 bullets in a building. Like, it was ridiculous, guys, if you hit shots, especially if you snuck a headshot in there. It was like 2 bullets. It was nuts. Next, we are going to talk about the M16. So the M16, you're going to say, oh, that's not that broken, the AUG. Do you guys remember the M16 right before season 2? Everyone switched to it the week before it, and it was just running the game. And it still would be running the game because there's been 0 changes to it if it wasn't for the AUG meta. So I would probably put this like right at A as well, because I just do not like those 3 burst guns. The skill gap is so low and they're so easy to use. Like, you can just get killed with 2 bursts and not even have to hit a headshot. It's really annoying when those skill gap guns just are in the game. Like, I don't want, if a 0.9 guy can, like, realistically guys, someone with like a 1 KD, they can aim their weapon in the general direction of someone. Me with a 2.5 can die to that is really frustrating. Ask pro players right now. 3 burst metas are their least favorite. We'll touch more on that on the next one. So let's go into the next gun before I get pissed off. Next, we have the Origin. If you guys don't remember the Origin is one of those guns that absolutely was terrible to play against. It had such a big mag and full auto, basically. Like, it's a semi-auto, but it shot with a crazy fire rate inside of buildings. Like, you just couldn't go in buildings at the time. It's kind of in the same boat as like these guns where the rennettis or the snakeshots. Like, it was so miserable to play against. But I think the Origin's going to fall in at B because we have a couple other ones that are way worse, like way worse. So this one, it was like the fire rate overpowered you. Like, you could still use the MP5 at the time and like beat it at times if you hit your shots, but it gave so much recoil to the person that you were shooting that it was almost impossible because the fire rate's so fast. So you're constantly just getting bullet punched. So I'll put it at B. It was terrible. Let's follow it up, guys. Let's get the shotguns out of the way here. The R9 Doof is going into S, 100%. There was a clip that I have on my channel. You can still find it. I killed 4 people in a building in 6 shots. Like, this gun was so broken. And then, like, you didn't even have to hit your shots because it's a shotgun. It had crazy range, stupid damage, and then, like, you, like, barely missed them. The fire rounds just burnt them to death. So, like, they had no option other than to die. I can go down and say that this is one of my least favorite metas in the history. The skill gap was 0 because anyone can aim at a shotgun in the general direction of people. You couldn't use your movement to get out of it because you're on fire, and like, it was just miserable to play against, guys. Absolutely miserable. First one that hits the S tier today because I'm just getting livid making this list, by the way. The fact that this gets into the game is beyond me. Next, we're going to go with the Kilo meta, guys. So the Kilo meta, obviously, so the Kilo came to fruition, came to the top as the gun because every other gun got nerfed. Like, every other gun just kept getting nerfed. Grau got nerfed, Bruen got nerfed, the M4 got nerfed. So the Kilo, to me, honestly, it wasn't that bad. I would probably put it at C tier. It was annoying that like you physically had to run the Kilo, but to me, I don't think it was like absolutely like broken like some of these other guns. Like, it just wasn't ever touched compared to the other weapons, so it was stronger than them, like just straight up stronger. Like, you could win gunfights with other guns against it, so I'm gonna put it into that C tier. To follow that up, guys, I'm gonna pull the M4. Do you guys remember the OG M4? The M4 and MP5 loadout was godlike when this game first came out. I'm probably going to have to throw this in B tier because you still could win with other guns at times, but it was insane. Everyone ran it. Like, you had no option. You were putting a scope on it. You were running with iron sights. There's like 18 different builds that were working. The gun was crazy. But at the end of the day, you could still lose fights, and the skill gap was there. Like, the better player was winning fights with these guns. So I prefer a meta like this, like I said with the Kilo, where you can, like, it's just better, but it's not broken. So I had to throw that meta in there because if you guys remember, I remember specifically one clip where Crim6 was getting like sniped at on the top of one of the buildings over by TV station. What is that building called? It's one where everyone lands their helicopter on top of it. But Crim, like, literally turns after getting shot and just beams this guy and just melts him to death. And you're just like, this gun is so broken right now. If you don't remember that M4 meta, the thing was nuts. Like, it was so good. Next, guys, I'm going to do the snake shots, man. The snake shots were another one of those metas where it's kind of fallen behind in the days. Like, people were so wrapped up in the Warzone, got so big during the Bruen and the Grau metas that the snake shots were horrible. They were worse than Doof Doof. If you guys remember these, because you can shoot them so fast. Like, you can put all 6 of them out in like half a second, and you would just one-shot people. Like, I think at most you needed like 2 shots out of each gun, and it held 6, because it's a 6-shooter. Held 6 of them. So you could kill 3 people, and you could probably kill more with those 6 shots, because sometimes you'd one-shot them, but other times it was like minimum 2. And they had a crazy range. If you went in a building and you didn't have them, you were done. Like, that was probably the first gun in this game. It was like, okay, like, no one has these leveled up because no one uses the Magnum in multiplayer. You gotta go do these. Like, they're absolutely busted right now. So, nightmares. Next, we're gonna talk about the AUG here. I perfectly, like, this is the worst meta in the history of Call of Duty Warzone for me. Like, I cannot stand this meta. And I know a lot of pro players can't, because it's the M16 that I put here where I'm saying, like, the gun is just OP as heck. Like, there's no option then just to die to it, because you die in 2 bursts. The fire rate's ridiculous. There's no recoil. They said they nerfed it this season, and it's exactly the same. Like, did they just want to put that in the patch notes to make us try to feel better because they don't want to get rid of it, or what? Because right now, a 0.5 KD player has a legitimate chance at killing Joe Woe. Like, ridiculously how OP this gun is. Like, if someone doesn't, like, you don't get first bullets, you are dead. Straight up. Like, there's no option other than death. So, that's where I do not like this meta. There's a 0 skill gap. Anyone can do it. Do not recommend ever making this game like this again. Please change it right now. I am just getting livid. I know everyone hates this meta, so I know we all feel the same. Let me know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you guys hate the AUG meta, because it is ridiculous. All right, guys. So next we have the MP5. I had to take a breath there because, oh my God, guys, I am livid. So the MP5 ran multiplayer for, like, this is the Modern Warfare MP5, by the way. The Modern Warfare MP5 ran multiplayer for the entire year, and then it ran literally Warzone for until the Mac10 came out. I would probably say this is probably going to fall into that. Probably they nerfed it a bunch over time, but like the original one, I'd probably have to put it in like B. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world to deal with. Because, like, obviously to me, like, the better player won most of the time, but the kill time was ridiculous at the beginning. Like, now you're kind of like, oh, this thing's kind of a pea shooter compared to some of the other guns. But like, if you remember the beginning, and like, not even the beginning, it was literally almost in like 9 months of the MP5 just dominating the game and slowly getting nerfed over time, to the point where they had to literally release new SMGs to take over the meta. Like, there was no other option until Cold War came out. There was like a slight MP7 meta at the beginning, but that wasn't broken at all because the MP7 doesn't do a ton of damage. But the Modern Warfare MP5 is probably most dominant and prolific SMG in Call of Duty Warzone history so far. But at the end of the day, if you were better, you still won the fight. So let's go on to the Mac10. The Mac10, it kind of falls in that same category, I'd say, as the MP5, but not everyone had it. Not everyone had Cold War to rank it up. There was a lot of people that, like, there was a glitch like with unlocking it. So there was a big gap where, like, if you didn't have the Mac10, you just lost. Like, you lost every fight. The headshot damage was ridiculous. It was like the original MP5, but on steroids because it had more range. Like, ridiculous range when it first came out. And the headshot multiplier was nuts. So I'd probably put it at A. You probably could drop it down a little bit lower on it, but I honestly just did not enjoy that meta. Like, this was at the exact same time as the next gun I'm going to talk about, the DMR. And, like, combining those two guns together, it was just like, and probably the best loadout in the history of Call of Duty Warzone. I'm going to be completely honest, because you had an absolutely broken SMG and an absolutely broken DMR. So the DMR, it's better than the AUG, straight up. Like, it's better than the AUG meta, because at least I was dropping high kill games because I had better accuracy. You had to hit headshots, or at least you had the option to hit headshots to beat people in team fights. The AUG, like if you aim at their head, like you're at a disadvantage because sometimes the bullets will go over the person's head with the recoil. But this gun was shot straight right off the rip. We're talking original DMR, even after the first nerf. It shot straight forward and killed people in 2 to 3 shots if you snuck a headshot in. If you hit 2 headshots in a row, they died. I personally think it was better though than the AUG currently, because like there was a skill gap. The better player is going to hit more headshots at the end of the day. Is there a chance that like you could say the same thing for the AUG? Yes, you could, but like realistically at the end of the day, that semi-auto is a huge skill gap for a lot of people, especially if you play on controller. A lot of people that master the controller are going to say you're crazy and it's easy, but like, you know how fast I can shoot it on a mouse and keep perfect control? Like, mouse and keyboard had a huge advantage in this meta, and I really did not like that about it, because I like the game to be like, I like to say that Warzone does a great job that the controller players can compete with mouse and keyboard players, because not many games can do that. And that meta 100% had an advantage on a mouse and keyboard. The ffar meta is still going, but honestly, I think it falls into the same category as the Mac10, where the better player wins. It's terribly annoying to play against. This most recent nerf does make it a little bit more acceptable, but it just has 0 recoil. You can kill people like across the map if you have really good accuracy. It's really hard because there is some recoil to the gun and those medium to long range shots, but it's just up close takes 0 skill. Like there's times where you can literally kill a whole team with that 150 round mag, and it has a crazy fire rate. Like, there's just sometimes where you shoot this gun, and it still happens with the ground loot one sometimes, where you like shoot it and you're like, did I just knock that guy? Like, I feel like I just started shooting this gun. And ideally we'll see another nerf here soon with it, because it is going to stay the meta for the time being, but it's doable. Like, I'm going to put it in A because like I hate it right now, and it might be like recency bias, but cannot stand it right now. Like, I'm basically not running it, period. Like, I'm trying so many different options, but like it's still the best one. So if I'm in a kill race, I'm running it right now. Last but not least, everyone loved this meta. Everyone hated this meta, but there was a legit skill gap in this meta. The Grau. My goodness. A lot of people want to say the Grau is the worst meta in the history of Warzone. I cannot say that I agree with you. It was broken though. Like, it has to go into S because it was broken. And one of those, like, it was, to me, it's above the Bruen. I put the Bruen at A, and the Grau, those are the two most, like, everyone talks about those two metas. To me, the Grau had a bigger skill gap because you had more movement, because you weren't hunkered down with the LMG. The Grau was a light AR that you literally just ran across the map and just aimed down sight. You had their iron sight, and then you just killed them. Like, you had to hit your shots a little bit, but like they just died so fast. Like, the craziest recoil control people, like, it just had 0 recoil. Like, it just was a straight line, 100%. And then they tried to nerf it, and they didn't really do much to it. People found out that you could just throw a VLK scope on it and you could control the recoil, and that changed the game. Like, I remember that point in time, Nicky Mercs was one of the first people to do it, felt like. And actually, it's probably Cloaksy was doing it first, because Cloaksy always tells him the meta, because Cloaksy like has that big brain. He might sound like an idiot sometimes, but like that dude knows so much about the game and is always ahead of it. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of scary too. But this meta, like when they get to the VLK, it was like, oh, now you can beam people on head glitches even. Like, it's not just people out in the open. And obviously this was a changing point in Warzone where the game really did like move faster. Like, everyone kind of understand what was going on. Everyone, like, it was a really fun time to be around the game. And I put it at S, but because it was like really annoying, but it was a fun meta as well. There was a slight skill gap to it where the better players did win most gunfights with it. So it's a little bit of an exception to this list, but I think that meta, like, the gun just was ridiculously broken. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy this one. I think this is a topic that a lot of people will have different answers on, mattering on skill level. Like, straight up, like, if you were a really bad player at this game, like a 0.5 KD and below, I love you guys, but you might have loved the Origin meta and like thought it was like the greatest thing ever or worst horrible thing ever, because that's probably the easiest gun on this list to use, straight up. Like, you just spammed it and it would just kill people. You might love the AUG meta and you want to put it down here because you're like, I'm finally killing people. But I did see some people with like 1 KDs on Twitter talking about with other people complaining about it, like pro players complaining and being like, I have a 1 KD and I can't stand it. So I thought that's really cool. That everyone's kind of on the same page. Obviously, they're a little biased because they're probably watching these guys' streams talking about it. But at the end of the day, guys, I really do appreciate you guys. Warzone for the last year has had some crazy metas. Like the fact that there's been that many metas in a year, it's kind of nuts. But other than that, I appreciate you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure you guys do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below if you guys want to see next, because this was one that my buddy Sam brought up and I love it. So I appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace out.